Hello, everyone. I'm Frank Stanishi of Open Forum, Candid, Frank, and Live. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now, joining me on Open Forum is Ida Li Preti. Ida, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me on the show. Thank you. I
It-
appreciate
It's it's our pleasure, and we're always willing to see and hear from up and coming politicians who, to put it bluntly, have our everything in you have everything in your control of what we want to do in life and be in life. All kidding aside, thank you for the contribution that you're willing to make for the rest of us. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. I'm honored. I'm honored to represent the people of Humber River Black Creek and by extension the people of Ontario.
Well, let's talk a little bit about yourself and a bit of your history. You were involved as a trustee. Tell me about your motivation to be a trustee and what that experience taught you and what you take from it.
It's been one of the most rewarding experiences, I believe, of life so far. There's been numerous challenges in the last 4 years. Um, we had one of the biggest budget cuts in modern history, a strike, and then a global pandemic where we had to rebuild education as we know it. We've seen throughout that time gaps in learning that have been exacerbated because of the pandemic. We've seen a lot of issues with students with their mental health. We've seen we've been through a lot together, and I'm a mother. I'm not sure if you know, I'm a mother to three young
Mm.
boys. So I went from pivoting, being a full time, having a job full time, and then pivoting to online learning and being their, frontline teacher for quite a while, and trying to balance it out with my role as a trustee. And my role as a trustee is interesting because you get to hear from the community, from families, and understand what the different needs are. And that's one of my favorite parts about my role as a trustee is hearing from the community. So in the last 4 years, whether it was virtual or whether it was in person, sitting down at, we call them CSPC, so it's the Catholic Parent Councils, listening to the concerns of parents and students, and then bringing those issues to our board table and making sure that whatever decisions we make, they align with what our community needs. And I have 13 schools in my ward, and it's really interesting to see how our ward is very big. Humber River Black Creek is a very big ward, but the dynamic within that ward, every school has a different set of concerns or a different set of needs, and trying to balance them out. One thing that I'm really proud of is I was the first trustee in Ontario to lower the class sizes due to the pandemic, and that affected every single school in Humber River Black Creek. So we were able to cap the class sizes while increasing staff. So that's one thing that I'm very proud of doing.
And so, what drove you to decide to become a candidate for Humber River Black Creek as a provincial representative for the Liberal Party?
There was a couple of different factors. I've always known that I was going to get into public service. I didn't know when, but as you may or may not know, I'm a family of politics. So my father was in politics for many years. I've volunteered in many different campaigns, and I had taken a step back a little bit because I started my own family, and I wanted to make sure that I was, being a mom, because the mom is, the most important role in my life. But I was asked to run in 2018 because there was a trustee that was leaving the school board, and she thought that I would be the perfect candidate. And this is before Doug Ford had rearranged the zones, the warding maps in the city of Toronto. So I said, you know what, this would be a perfect time. And I think it's really like I stopped putting it off, and I just, I said, I made a commitment, a firm commitment, and I went for it, and I won.
Will your father again be your campaign manager?
He's an all around my person. I have to tell you, my dad is my best friend in the world. He's just a great person that I love having beside me at all times. And I always
Uh,
tell people that it's a blessing. It is really a blessing because I learned so much from all the positives that he was able to contribute to our community. And I hope that I could continue with that legacy.
Let's talk about the closer family, your own family unit, and how do you see your family and you working out the relationship that you'll have as if you win election. You'll be busy outside the home. What kind of challenges do you see? Your family. I'm sure they're going to be very supportive. And how do you see them being supportive?
It's all hands on deck right now. So I've been canvassing for a while, getting ready for this provincial election. And I'm very lucky because I've been with my husband for 22 years now. And whether it's me trying to save sharks, when I really got into the banning the shark fin movement a few years back, or whether it's making sure that plastics stay out of our oceans. He's very supportive of anything that I've decided to do. So I'm very grateful for him. He hasn't mastered the laundry though. That's one thing that we have to work on in our own home. Uh, but we're working on it. Okay. Um, I think that for me personally, I'm going to go back to my grandmother because my grandmother used to tell me all the time when we started our family, she kept saying the days are long, but the years are very short. So always make the most of every single day, of every single minute.
That makes
And
a lot.
and so as a mom, I really took that to heart, and I never forgot those words, and I live by them even to this day. So what we do in our own family is I schedule family time. So I have date nights with my husband, and I have date nights with each of my kids so I could take them, one on one. And when those nights are scheduled in my calendar, those are my priority. I make sure that come rain, snow, sleet, whatever emergency comes up, those days are set because to me, my family will always be my priority, my number one priority. And then we have, our movie nights, or we have our, Blue Jay game day, and I try to revolve my schedule around them. Now, granted, it's hard and it takes a village, and I'm very fortunate because I have, my in-laws and my own mom and father that really help out. But it's really making that time, putting it in my paper agenda over here, circling it, and making sure that we really stick to it because it does get demanding. It gets very demanding.
Two things that men who don't do laundry, and I hate to sound like a sexist because this is terrible, but two things that men need to learn when it comes to doing laundry: pink is not your favorite color, and Barbie clothes shouldn't be coming out of the laundry.
Yes, we've had uh, we've had a few issues with shrinking, but it's funny enough, it wasn't my clothes. It was during COVID, and it was always my husband's clothes. And I kept saying, maybe those are a couple of pounds, and he didn't want to hear it. He didn't
Ooh, ooh,
because
ooh! Now,
I did go through the let's learn how to make bread phase of the pandemic.
and
And
I
our
bet you
shirts
did a good
our
job.
shirts kept getting a little tighter and tighter. Our pants got
Absolutely.
a little harder to, pull on, but it
Well,
was
you
good.
didn't have to go out much, so wine and cheese and bread was a good staple during the pandemic. I know it was for me. Yeah, so relationships are today are difficult only because the transitioning of the way we think. And as a young woman who is concerned about women's issues, I mean, I saw that you were equal pay, for example. Talk to me about equal pay and why it's so important.
Well, it's time for us to break that glass ceiling, right? Like there's so many ceilings that women need to break. One in particular is if elected or when elected, I'll be the first female MPP we've ever had from Humber River Black Creek. We've never had one. When it comes to equal pay for the job that's done, it's instrumental, and it's sad that we're still talking about it in 2022. But you see it, and the Ontario Liberal Party is committed to making sure that we start working towards that, and not just words. So that's one thing that I think that a lot of people that have come to volunteer with me have said to me is, it's one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing to actually go in and do the job to get it done, and finding the ways to get equal pay, and make sure that this is something from the past. Now, we're not going to be talking about this in 4 years anymore, 8 years, making sure that it's done now because it's time.
And what the pandemic taught us, statistically, it became clear that the first to give up their jobs to take care of the children, you referred to homeschooling your children, the vast majority are women who left the workforce. And somehow, I know the provincial party and also the federal party, we're beginning to appreciate the fact that, affordable childcare should be on the front burner. Fair?
100%. And I hear this. I mean, look, I lived it myself. I was homeschooling my kids, and my job was really communicating with parents, whatever strategies or whatever the board was implementing to our local school communities, and it was tough trying to manage both things. And I know a lot of parents were trying to manage both things, specifically single moms, or moms in particular. I mean, throughout the ward, we heard it every single day. And the $10 a day childcare, this is something that's going to really help a lot of people in our community. I'm still paying off the debt that we incurred in childcare with our kids, and they're now 5, 7, and 9. It's very expensive in Toronto, and it's not something that's affordable for many families. And a lot of families have to decide: are you going to pay for childcare, or are you going to give up your job for a time until your kids are able to go to school?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
It's something that even at my family, we sat down as a family, well, me and my husband at the time, and we sat down and we contemplated it. Is it worth me going to work, earning a paycheck, and just literally giving it over to childcare? So it's very good news. We're very happy to hear about the $10 a day childcare, and we're very happy to start reintegrating back into the workforce. Some have completely gone back. Others are struggling because they may have lost their jobs. There's immunocompromised families, and the parents still haven't been able to go back to work. But another thing that I'm very proud of is, in the 4 years that I've been a trustee, we have 4 new childcare centers that were built in Humber River Black Creek that I helped with. St. Augustine is one of them. St. Roch is going to be completed by the end of June. And we have 2 more on the horizon, St. Andre and St. Jude. So those are in the working phases, and that's something that I'm very, very proud of, because not only is it important to be able to afford daycare, accessibility to get to the daycare is very important. And it just makes sense. This is something that the Liberal Party had started years ago, where we started incorporating the daycares directly in the school. So the transition, hopefully, from the daycare into the school is as easy as possible, not only for the parents, but most importantly for the students. It's an easy transition.
Well, for your father's parents and my parents, the transition was where you had a single income parent. In other words, the man, again, I hate to sound sexist here, the man worked and the woman stayed at home, and they could get by that way. But today things have changed. These last 2 generations later, both have to work. So there has to be not only that happening where you have a couple both have to work regardless of how they identify, but families have to, one income's just not enough, so they need some help when it comes to childcare, and it's a good thing that it's going on, and I hope it gets better for people.
Absolutely. My mom, I have to say that my mom did work. She did work, but we were blessed because we had my grandmother. So we lived on a street where it was my grandmother, my aunt, and my mom, and it was again, it took a village to raise all of us kids. There was 5 of us all together, 3 with my family, and my aunt had 2. and just all hands on deck, everyone helping out as much as possible, and creating memories together, but most importantly being there to support and really lift each other up. So in this day and age, it's even grocery shopping right now. That's another one, food insecurity. We see it. I don't know how some families are able to cope at this time, because the cost of food it's impossible. It's impossible to get by at this point. I worked with the city of Toronto as the director of a director on Toronto's Board of Health, and as a school board trustee. And I worked with Joe Cressy with City of Toronto, trying to get access to a school nutrition program for families that were facing food insecurity, and really increasing the amount that we were able to offer our students. So we did do that. We did do that successfully, but it's not enough. And hopefully we see some relief, because it just can't continue the way it is. Even for a family of two, even for two parents, the double income family, it's still very tough.
Yeah, let's be clear. When it comes to food insecurity, as a school trustee and someone who's very close to education, you understand, and I believe from what I have learned, is that hungry children don't make good students.
Hungry children don't learn. That was the saying that we had at the board. Hungry children don't learn. And we have an incredible student nutrition program with our school board. I know that our coterminous board has the same program, and it's phenomenal. And we applaud all of the volunteers that go to schools, that go to work every day and make that happen. Because without them, we wouldn't be able to feed these kids, to give them the nutrition that they need for the day.
Let's be honest, the foundation of life.
Yeah.
Right? It's what it takes. And as a mother, and as a family member, education is really important. And the diversity now in education that education has to deal with, whether it be how people identify themselves. How's that going from your perspective, and how can it run a little smoother? There's change is scary for a lot of people, and sometimes when people are afraid, they react maybe in a way that doesn't come across as common sense. How can we negotiate that, being a school trustee and knowing there are issues that children have after eating? Once they eat enough, there's other issues that they have to deal with, whether it is what the family unit looks like, what they think of themselves. How else in this era do you see helping those people?
Thank you for the question. This is something that I've been working on for the past 4 years as a trustee, making our schools as inclusive as possible for the most marginalized, making sure that all people are welcome, no matter their gender, no matter their sex, no matter their marital status, making sure that when they walk in the front doors of our schools, that they feel welcome, that they feel welcomed, that they feel appreciated, and that they feel safe. And it's not something that we're going to fix overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take patience, understanding, and there's a lot of people that have very different opinions. But I think that the safety of our students is of utmost importance, and we just need to focus on them, because when we focus on student achievement, student safety, making sure that they feel again appreciated and that they feel welcomed, that's the most important. And I think that we've done a really good job at the TCDSB in the last 4 years. We've included the terms from the Ontario Human Code into our code of conduct. We've, for the first time ever in the history of board, have raised the pride flag in June, making sure that all students, no matter what, full stop, when you walk into our school, you are loved.
There is we talked about food being an issue for children learning, and then feeling different and unaccepted, and that everybody, I shouldn't say requires it, because I can't speak for everybody, but I think everybody deserves a chance to feel self-worth, and And sometimes that's the challenge that in education teachers have to deal with, is that children come in. It's hard to learn if you don't think very much of yourself, or you're made to feel that way.
Absolutely. And just like moving, even elaborating a little bit more, like we've seen the gaps in learning, and I said this before, completely exacerbated because of COVID. Not many students were able to learn remotely. Not many, even especially the younger ones. And you have to, I'm not an academic by any means, but in the amount of reading that I have been able to do in the last few years, the first, I think it's 5-6 years of a child's life are the most important, like developmentally. And the kindergarten and the primary students that missed out on the those fundamental learning years, because you're learning like the basics, reading, math, language, trying to close that learning gap. It's going to take a lot of work, and you have to like think outside of the box. We can't just keep doing status quo, because it's not going to help. What's going to happen is the gaps in learning are going to continue. So I appreciate what Stephen Del Duca has and the Ontario Liberals have pledged to do, and is to lower class sizes for the next few years, to make sure that these gaps in learning are addressed, because this is our future. These kids need the help now. And on another note, like seeing the amount of children, and I'm privileged that I'm able to do this for my own children, seeing the amount of children needing tutoring, such as one of these tutoring programs after school, which are not cheap by any means. So it's kind of a two-tiered system at this point, because we're able to afford it, and we've made the decision to invest in it, but not all families can do that. So really finding the programs in our schools, or getting those programs in our schools, so that every child is able to succeed academically and be able to achieve, is important, because it all comes back. It'll all come back to mental health, because if you don't feel confident as a child in what you're doing in the groundwork, we don't want that to grow with them. We want them to be able to succeed throughout the years that they're.
Well, think of it. I'd like the viewers to think of it as the children over the past few years, because they haven't had the food of social interaction, the food of education on location among other children. They are, I hate using this word, but I'm going to use it just for the sake of the conversation. Their education is a bit stunted. And because it's stunted, that one group at that age group doesn't, the education system is built on basically uniformity. In other words, there's an expectation that when you go from grade 1 to grade 2 to grade 3 to grade 4, each one is a simple transition. Now, all of a sudden, somebody doesn't have a child doesn't have a level of education they need to do the next step. So do you see as a trustee that they can somehow buffer that time where they're behind, where they can be given, especially the ones that can't afford the tutoring, like you said?
Yeah, so I'll give it to the Ford government, where he did invest in temporary tutoring programs in the schools. So when this is something that I completely agree with. It's from, I believe it starts in April until the end of the year, and hopefully he'll continue it next year, where some, like the students, will be getting tutoring, extra help within the school day or before and after. So that rollout is happening now, and I'm really hoping that if whatever happens with the provincial election, that we could continue this program into the next few years, because there needs to be, we can't, this is one thing that really irks me, and I'll just talk offline with you, I'll be honest with you, is when we put something in and it's just a temporary, it's like a Band-Aid. Yes. It can't be a Band-Aid in this case. Like, this needs work. This needs us to continue to be proactive. So continuing in the next, and I'm not going to say forever, but at least in the next, few years, making sure that that program, that this funding is there to make sure that these kids get the support that they need in school, not just until the end of June, um, as is.
I understand. And basically what you're saying is it's a mirror effect, right? They
Yeah,
they they spent 3 years, 2, 3 years of not getting the kind of education they need. They're going to need at least 2 or 3 years of help because they won't be doing nothing. They'll be learning what they're supposed to be learning. So this is something that's over and above the time frame that they would have had if it wasn't for the pandemic. So it's a challenge for
yeah.
sure.
And it's not only because, don't forget, at the beginning of the conversation, I said that because of COVID, the gaps have been. We've seen the gaps increase. The gaps were already there, so we already had gaps, especially in communities like Humber River Black Creek. They've been exacerbated because of COVID, but the gaps were always there. So when we talk about equity, and I know that everybody loves talking about equity, equity is like the word, right? We have to see it in action. So what does equity mean? Equity means we need to continue, we need to invest we need to invest in the schools, we need to invest in the communities that were systematically left out for so long. And Humber River Black Creek is one of them. I had schools that, when I came in, they had some of the lowest scores, with the EQAO in the province. So making sure that these schools get the help they need, not only because of COVID, but because of the gaps that have been there for so long.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the first, well, not first, but one of the challenges since immigration is elevated to the point it's elevated is the challenge that language presents for learning for children. So, that all these, so we have experience in understanding how to, again, not equality, right? Because that's a different word. That's not what we're talking about here. We're basically trying to raise the bottom up a little bit that needs a little help, a hand up, if you will, not a handout,
Exactly.
a hand up. So to ensure that they can meet the standards that they need to fall in so that they can progress, the assembly line of children for education. At the end of the day, the purpose of that is to make, people find tax. I'll cut right to the end. Find tax-paying individuals who have good jobs, which goes towards what we talked about before, which is why women shouldn't be leaving the workforce because of what happened a couple of years ago, and why affordable daycare is important, because the more people that work, the more tax-paying people there are, and the better it is for our economy. So it's, in a way, it's a selfish move.
Exactly. I'll
So
take the selfish move because really at the end, it benefits everybody.
and I say that with tongue in cheek, right?
Yeah.
Selfish in a good sense. It's like a happy cry, right? That kind of.
Another thing that, like, and it's another one of my passions, and one of the things I'm very committed to is I find that I'm not going to age myself here, but we've seen a very big, and it's something that we're proud of. We went very academic focused in our schools, where the trades, like skilled jobs,
Uh-huh.
we don't see that anymore. Like it's just
Tradesman.
not. And we have job opportunities that are open up to members of our community, in the trades, but we don't have anywhere to help people learn the trade, apprentice at the trade. So one of my focuses is going to be to get a trade school right here in Humber River Black Creek.
Well, it's about
Um,
time.
yeah,
To be
100%.
honest with you, I'm a construction guy. You're talking to a guy that you're preaching to the choir here. I ran jobs. I built big buildings, and there is good money in the trades.
Amazing money in the trades. We look at, I'll tell you like one story, HVAC. We have an HVAC company. People are retiring. There's nobody there to take those jobs. And these jobs, when they're translated to me, you're starting at $100 an hour. You have car, you have benefits, you have vacation, you have compensation. It's a full package. These are incredible jobs. But I feel like what the school systems have done, and I think it's, both boards are guilty of this, is that we've concentrated so much on the academic portion that we've we haven't focused at all on skilled labor, on trades, on getting on growing that. I don't know if you agree with me or not,
No,
but it's
no, it's a lot. I totally agree with you. It's a lot like life. You know, the sad part is it's all about what we want rather than what we need. People, we talked about children. We can talk about families now. We can talk about work. Where you want to raise a family, you need the income so that you can, to continue the conversation, is so that you can afford to have a tutor. You know, not everybody, I don't think we should expect everybody to be a minimum wage employee. I think that, you know, I was in construction and I watched tradesmen make a lot of money. And there's admittedly, it's kind of male focused, right? But there are a lot of trades that women, electricians, well, any trade that any woman has
where
the ability to keep up with. It's another opportunity, and you're so right. You know, vocational schools have not. I think they were better in the '60s than they are now, and I think it might have something to do with sometimes I think people like us, you know, when I say people like us, I mean children of immigrants whose parents taught us to be better than they were, who want us to be better than they were, and forgot that what they did. I come from the Italian community. What are we known for? Let me guess: shovels, digging, construction. You know, and we somehow went down this garden path where we believed that, you know, oh, you don't want to be that. You know, my mother, oh, you want to wear a suit, right? But you know, you don't have to wear a suit to make a really good living. And you're right. This is a pet peeve of mine, by the way. That's why I can rant on it. So I apologize.
No, I agree with you 100%. Not on the woman part. The woman, I think that, there are a lot of women, and we're just gonna entice them more to get into the trades now.
The enticement is the salary. I think at the end of the day, what has to happen is there has to be, I guess, you know, we're at an inflection point, really, when it comes to society, right? We're 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 needing to figure out where men and women fit in the world today, right? And I think all bets are off. I think at the end of the day, the leashes have to come off, and then what has to happen is I'm a free enterprise guy. If if there's a woman that's a better electrician than that guy, then she should have the job and she should get the work. I'm a free opportunity person. That's the way it should be. But the key is, and this is the scary part, is sometimes people don't know they have the opportunity. And that's where your job comes in. I'm not a politician, I'm not a trustee. It's about opportunity and presenting it to the full scope of society, not just, you know, directional, if you will.
And this is something that I'm I'm gonna explain again, because I tell my team all the time. It's having different levels of government in one community work together. Like you have your federal, you have your provincial, you have the city, you have your trustees. Um, Cooperation between government is so important. If at the end game what you want is to better the community, because when there's no cooperation, everything's working in a silo, and nothing gets done in a silo. You need that cooperation, and you need to be able to work together. Like you need to be able to work outside of the box, making sure that the community comes first, not me or whoever the federal
Uh,
MP is, or whoever the municipal.
Fundamental needs have to be met, you
A hundred
know,
percent, and
and
that doesn't get
it
done
doesn't come
without
from one direction.
cooperation between government levels. Even just like as a trustee, the amount of job opportunities that we've been able to, I'm not saying that everyone was able to apply, but I'll give you an example. French teachers. We are at a crux in Ontario, whether you're with the public board, you're at with the Catholic board, the public board. We're having a tough time finding and retaining French teachers. Not many people knew that at this point, boards are hiring unqualified teachers if you speak French. If you're able to teach the language and you're unqualified, you may be hired. Well, we have a huge amount of people in our community that speak French, but nobody knew to apply to the boards, not only our board, whether it's York or Peel, Toronto. These jobs are there. It's but we can't do it alone. The messaging, it takes different levels to work together to get these messages out.
It seems counterintuitive because many a parent who puts their children who don't have a French background to put their children through French immersion schools is they're doing it to give their children a better opportunity for employment. So it
Mhm.
seems kind of counterintuitive and kind of I'm kind of I'm kind of I'm kind of I'm a little bit confused. Let's keep going down the employment road, and as far as Ontario is concerned, let's talk about employment generally and what you see, Stephen Del Luca, your leader, and your party, if you're elected, what you can do to improve employment for Ontarians.
Yeah, for all of Ontario, I'm gonna start with Humber River Black Creek, and I'll give you an example. We have a huge project going on with Metrolinx right now. Um, we need companies like Metrolinx when they're coming into our community to start hiring the people from our community, because that's what's going to keep that's good. That's what's going to start the economic drive and the economic growth and keep it going. Making sure that our community is prioritized with employment and getting the skilled labor from our community within our borders, because this project is a huge project that's happening right now as we speak.
Years.
Yeah, a lot of traffic going on in our area.
I drive there all the time. I live in Wasaga, but I was born and raised Dufferin and Lawrence, so I know the area
Oh,
you're
wow,
talking about. Yeah, so I
fantastic.
know. Yeah, no, I know the area you're talking about. It's crazy. There's 3 seasons. No, there isn't. There's
Um,
1. It's construction season. Um,
construction season.
yeah, um, you're right. As I'm glad that's one of your focuses, and that should be, and the way you're focusing on it, I have to applaud you because it's important that every politician, because this is one of the issues I have with Canadian politics, where it's from time to time, it seems like it's from the leadership down. And what you're talking about is from the representative up. And I think that's important because every community should be represented 100%. In what other ways is finding employment, and what do you see yourself, since you've allowed me to introduce this question, what else do you see that you need to do to help Black Creek and the people in your community?
Stephen Del Duca has made a number of different priority issues, policies right now. So one of them is the $10 million in grants for Black-owned businesses. Um, we would definitely appreciate the grants here in Humber River Black Creek for a lot of the startups. That I know there's a lot of people here that are lost their business during COVID and want to start something new or want to restart up again. So that would be very much welcomed here in the community. Um, uh, in Humber, it's collaboration, even just within our own community, in terms of bringing in where the needs are most,
Hmm.
and having the having the opportunity for a lot of the youth in our area to apply to positions, to apply to different areas that need them the most, because a lot of them, like you said before, they don't know what's out there. There's a lot of people looking for work right now, and there's a lot of companies in our area that need people to work for them, and there's just like this disconnect. And trying to make that happen is going to be something that I'm focused on doing. Like just this morning, I was at a grocery store, and he was saying how he doesn't have anybody. There's nobody, like he's hiring. Like if there's anybody that needs a job, like he's hiring. And I know that that's the same for a lot of the small businesses in our community. There are jobs available. It's getting the community to understand what they need to get the jobs that where do they see themselves? Is it Metrolinx? Is it TTC? Is it the police department? I know that a lot of these companies had made commitments 2 years ago to hire more racialized people in their workforce. So that's one that we've committed to doing with the Liberals, is hiring a more diverse police force. to better reflect the needs of the community. I know the school boards are also doing that. I know the TTC is also doing that. Um, and giving people again the a lift up, helping them lift up. But I learned my politics is very similar to that of my dad's because I saw and I learned from him. It is from the bottom up. And that's how you represent a community. You can't go from the top down. You need to understand the community to be able to lift them up. And that's something that I firmly believe in, and that's how, even as a trustee with the school board, that's how I've always been able to work is sitting down at tables, listening to the stakeholders, listening to the community, see what needs to be done, and then ref- bringing that back to the table and saying, this is how we could fix it. Here, let's look outside of the box.
Let's look at another important facet. I want to make sure we get this in is healthcare. That's another pet peeve of yours. Speak to me about healthcare. And in there is mental health. We talked about children eating food, but now mental health in the education system, the pandemic has become a terrible thing to deal with. And it's been, it's almost like a pandemic on its own.
Yeah, so Stephen Dudukas has said that mental health is one of his priorities, and he said that he would hire 10,000 more mental health workers um, immediately. Um, but I'm going to go further than that. And again, this is from the bottom up. Humber River Black Creek, we're suffering right now. There's huge deficiencies in our healthcare system right here. And I'll tell you why. The family doctors that we've had for years and years and years, these are people that take care of our seniors and take care of our kids, and that take care of us. They're retiring at a huge rate. I mean, and it's very hard to get doctors to come in to our community and start a family practice. Something needs to be done. We need to look at what's happening in our communities and try to understand how this gap has gotten so big. When I go speak to seniors, they don't have a family doctor that they can rely on because they've retired. I have seniors that are driving, to Barrie, to Vaughan, to Etobicoke. We need family doctors in our community. When I sit on the board, the board of health, one thing that stuck with me, and it'll stay with me forever, I think, is one of the reports. It was called the Toronto Health Check Report. I believe it was 2018, and it said that a person's health is dependent on their postal code, and that's not okay.
No.
We can't talk about equity and say that it's okay that our families don't have health care available to them. And when it comes to seniors, that's something else that I'm committed to. I am absolutely committed to is having help that they need in their homes. We want them to stay in their homes for as long as possible to get the care that they need within their, within their homes, so that they've invested so much into our communities. Like their whole lives, they worked and they paid their taxes, and we want to see them get the care that they need with dignity within their homes. And I'm not saying if there's if it's medically fragile, if we're dealing with Alzheimer's or dementia and they need extra levels of care. I'm talking about our seniors that they want to go out and have coffee with friends, or they want to plant in their garden. They want to keep doing the tomatoes, but they do need some extra help getting that help they need, that care that they need.
Well, I can sympathize what you're saying. I believe my mother lives in your riding, but that's another story. She's 93 and she goes to a walk-in clinic. That's her doctor.
Yeah.
So I can understand where you're coming from in that. I live it. So,
And
we
it's
all have lives.
acceptable. It's not okay. And it's not, I'm telling you, like I've seen it with my own eyes. Walking into a walk-in clinic, your 93-year-old grandmother, mother, sorry, she could be sitting there for 3 hours waiting to see somebody because there's 20 people in front of her. That's not okay. That's never okay, and we should never accept that. But we have, and it's time that it changes.
Well, there's things that you can deal with. Anyway, healthcare. We talk about the pandemic and the framework that one of the biggest problems that we learned from our healthcare system is that our emergency and our emergency healthcare system is very fragile because it only has a couple of percentile uh, points where it can take extra work, and then it becomes overloaded. Is there any idea in your mind, as a representative, that you'll work on making that, if you understand my question, I hope you do, that we have a wider gap where we can tolerate more emergencies as opposed to breaking down, shutting down, because there's an economic cost to hospitals shutting down?
Oh, 100%. I felt it. So I had my son needed surgery. I mean, it wasn't anything too serious, but he did need the surgery, and he waited 2 years to get the surgery that he needed, because of the constant lockdowns and shutdowns. I'm waiting for the party to release more of its platform, but I would support the um, increasing the increasing the funds available to hospitals so that they could expand, to make sure that we're never in a situation like this ever again. We need to be proactive and not reactive in government, and we need to, see things, not only next year, but 5-10 years down the line.
Well, one of the reasons why the Americans were able to handle it so well, as well as they did, even though they have other issues, is that they have doctors that are part of the army and other National Guard and things like that, so that when there were communities like there was in New York, they could send people to help that. Do you see Ontario looking down that kind of road where we have sort of an emergency group that can travel from community to community where the hotbeds are, to ensure that Ontario as a whole doesn't have to shut down because an area has some issues that maybe drags down you know, because we live by example, right?
Yeah,
If Toronto's suffering, everybody else has to go along, or if Barrie's suffering, then everybody else has. Is there a way to have like you said, reflexive healthcare system?
yeah. I'm. I know that there was talk, where Stephen Del Duca had said that he wanted to call in the army to help with, long-term care homes and in some of the hospitals. So we don't have it to the extent of our neighbors in the south, but we do have that availability. It would be up to government to use the options that are available to them. We also have, organizations like Red Cross that come in and do step up when the help is needed the most. One of the examples in our community was during the Gosford fire. I'm not sure if you remember that. There was a
Hmm.
huge Gosford fire, and I mean, this isn't anything close to a pandemic, but it's an example of how, organizations like the Red Cross, they come in and they help communities build up. I mean, to a lower capacity than, let's say, New York, but
It's that thinking outside the box that you were talking about. I mean, a lot of times people have conversations, and sometimes we're afraid to have conversations because of the reactions people have to the subject matter. When sometimes the subject matter should not be looked at as a final conversation, but should be looked at an investigation into what works best. It sounds to me like, let's talk about everything and not commit to anything, but let's talk about everything, and let's try to figure out together how it works, whether it be local or provincial or federal governments, right?
100%. And that's, I like the constant, looking over your shoulder, checking, who you might, you said a word wrong, and you're about to get,
How does this fit into my political profile?
yeah, it's, I mean, it's scary out there because you always have to be careful of, what you say and how you say it, and if you're saying it in the right tone. I remember it anyway. We have to learn that politics doesn't have to be an awful, dirty place. Politics could be something that is for the people. And that's one of the reasons why I chose the Liberal Party, is because at the heart of what it means to be an Ontario Liberal is the constant pursuit of progress. And Stephen Del Duca said that, and I put in my new literature, because we can always do better. So let's build the foundation, just like we did during the pandemic with schools. Build the foundation and keep building it up. You don't have to tear it down. Keep building it up. So when our schools closed and we didn't know what was going on, we built a foundation, and we just kept building it up. So let's help each other, and let's be there for one another. And again, I am a strong believer in the grassroots and making sure that you start at the bottom and you work your way up. Nobody owes me anything. I'm here to listen, to learn, and to help. And I'm here to, drive my own path. And hopefully people like your mother will support, or even consider volunteering and helping out.
Boy, that was. I'll get on the phone with her right now. I got to make sure that she's across. Well, she's near the hospital.
Thanks.
She's near the big hospital. So anyway, so we got only a couple of minutes left. Please give us an indication of how people can help you run. What are you looking for? And this is your couple of minutes where you can tell us why. Tell the people out there why they should vote for you, and how they can get in contact with you, and how they can help you to, as you just alluded to.
I think that I've been a strong and decisive voice in our community for my entire life, and I like working collaboratively with people. I like helping people understand. I like to understand the challenges and then find solutions. I'm very solution oriented. I think that you should support me, because not only would you be making history, as I would be the first female MPP of Queen's Park, and that does matter, but working together collaboratively with different levels of government is something that I don't think that we've seen in the past 4 years. And I'm really excited to bring that back, because it's only through that we can really succeed. And if you want to help, my office is at Jane Shepherd Mall. I am located in the same building as the TD Bank, or the new Vietnamese grocery store that we run to often when we're in need of some substance. So come out and come and help us. We do need help. We have a dynamic team, a great team, but we're always looking for more volunteers, especially people on the phone. So you can reach us by emailing me at ida@idalipreti.com.
That's fantastic. Now, tell me the truth now. I need to know the truth.
Always.
Is your father really running your campaign?
No, but he is helping. He is helping a lot. He is.
I'm only kidding, because we know who the real boss is. Your mother.
Yeah, my mom. She's the neck. She's the neck that turns the head, right?
Absolutely. Part of being a politician is today, the toughest thing. I'll give you my 30 seconds. The worst thing about being a politician today is that if you sincerely are in there to try and help and to do good for people, it seems like today there's just another group of people who are going, let's make nothing happen. The negativity. You got 30 seconds. How do you see the challenge of the negativity that's out there, to whatever extent and to whatever,
You have to lead by example. And so that's how I would do it. I would lead by example and hope other candidates follow the same goal, because without leading by example, if you check my Twitter feeds, my Instagram, my social media, I never attack the person. I would, not always agree with the policy, but I don't attack the person or who the person is friends with or the person's family. It's very disturbing what we see today in politics, and we could do better as a province and as a country.
Absolutely. I really appreciate the time you took to be here with us.
Of course. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Liberal candidate for Ontario's legislature, Humber Black Creek, Ida Li Preti. Ida, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You're welcome. For Ida Li Preti, I'm Frank Stanishi. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live's Open Forum, seen live Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Open Forum, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next week. Don't forget, the election's in a couple of weeks.